Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today we're going to be discussing everything that I watched in the month of April.
It's coffee time!
We have finally also welcomed the good weather here in the Netherlands, so I will be joining you now sometimes with my cold coffee times. So today we're going to be discussing everything that I watched on April. There are some horror movies there that I have not reviewed, and also some rewatches, so let's get started. As I usually do, let's go check our Letterboxd so that I can see everything that I ended up watching in the month of April. So the first thing that I watched actually is a movie that I found, I believe, on Amazon Prime here, and it's called The Retreat, and it follows a couple, and these two girls decide to go to a countryside house because they're having problems with their relationship. So they decide to go there on a trip with their best friends, thinking that, you know, it's gonna be good for them and for their relationship. However, when they get there, they cannot find their friends, and they soon realize that they're going to be hunted by some kind of like weird people there. I don't want to give too much away about what the movie is truly about, but I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I expected. I feel like when I saw the poster, the name and stuff, I was like, oh, again, we have a couple of people that go into kind of like a retreat, cabin in the woods kind of situation. But actually, I really enjoyed it a lot more than expected. Even though I felt like the story was predictable, I felt like they did a good job when it comes to creating the tension and the atmosphere that the movie needed. So what you can expect from this one is a survivalist slasher film with some nice gore moments. Next we have Piggy. I do have a spoiler-free review of this one, and I ended up really enjoying this film, and I do hope that the director is gonna get more chances to bring her movies to life, her ideas to life, because I feel like she has a future in the industry if she's given the chance. So Piggy tells the story of a girl that lives in a very small town in Spain, and she is constantly being bullied because of her weight. She is overweight and she is very ashamed, and she has trouble finding friends, and that is until some sort of like killer comes to town, and some of those girls that bully her starts to disappear. I really enjoyed this movie. I really did. I felt like the character development was great. The main actress was fantastic. And the only thing is that I know the poster of this movie leads you to believe that it's going to be like a splatter gore fest. Not exactly like that, even though you're gonna get to see blood. And I know a lot of people had a problem with the ending. I didn't mind it so much. I felt like they tried to do some changes on the tropes from horror movies, and those are always welcome for me when people try to invert or give a spin on tropes, because, you know, we have seen the same tropes over and over again, so I always am happy when someone tries something different. And that was a really good way to end that, because trying something different is not exactly what the Pope's Exorcist did. I was quite underwhelmed by the film. I also didn't know what to expect, but when you have an Oscar winner like Russell Crowe and you go to see this movie, you kind of have at least a hope. Even though every single year we get exorcism movies and they tend not to be great. We get like either possession, exorcism, some sort of mix. And they tend to be disappointing. My first problem was that this was inspired by the works of Father Amorth, which was a priest that did write books about the, you know, supernatural, the exorcism, the demons and all of that. And I felt like that was just an excuse to use him, because the movie has really nothing to do with his stories. Apart from that, I felt like they just relayed on every single trope that you can get from exorcism movies, and at the end of the day, the movie didn't give me anything fresh or new. The story follows Father Amorth as he works for the Vatican in solving some of these exorcism cases and investigating them when there's a case that comes up in Spain, and he decides to travel there and things get really dangerous for him. You know, you kind of know what to expect from this film. I felt like they are leading you to believe there is a deeper meaning to this movie, but then they didn't actually quite went for that. So it was really like unfulfilling for me. Even though some of the horror elements were nice, there was something that they did different, one thing towards the ending, the end battle, that includes blood, that's all I'm gonna say, that I thought was cool, but that was it. So I was really underwhelmed. And then you guys, I went to watch a movie that I was so happy, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So when I was a kid, I had a Sega Master System 2. My cousin had a PlayStation 1 and my other cousins had a Nintendo. So I was able to play the field. And I remember playing Nintendo when I went to my cousin's house when I was a small kid. And I've always had like a soft spot for Mario. I've always loved playing the games. I'm a Nintendo baby. I love Nintendo. Like every time they come out with a new console, that's what I'm buying. So I've been very faithful to Nintendo, and I was so happy to see this movie. I was just so excited in the cinema. Like you could see me like laughing, having a blast, enjoying myself. They did references to different types of Mario games, including Luigi's Mansion and of course Mario Kart, and I just had a blast. Is the movie perfect? No, but I just absolutely love it. So the story follows basically Mario and Luigi that doing a job trying to get some money with their plumbing services. They get stranded into these different world where Princess Peach lives, and they end up having to help her to fight Bowser. I just loved it. And obviously also my girl Anna Taylor-Joy voices Peach. Jack Black voices Bowser, and there is a song in the movie. I loved it. I was having such a blast. I was laughing and I really enjoyed it, especially a character in the jail from Bowser's Castle that is like a little twinkly, kind of like almost like a star. And it only says sentences that are super depressing, but it delivers the sentences in such a joyful way. That was one of my favorite characters. If you watch the movie, you know, but definitely go watch it. It's a lot of fun. So after that, I rewatched The Evil Dead. I was getting myself ready for Evil Dead Rise, so I decided to go back to the older films because I had not rewatched it in some years, and I felt like if I wanted to do a ranking, it would be good to revisit them. So I rewatched The Evil Dead. We all know what the movie is about. It is about a group of friends that go to a cabin in the woods and discover a book, and when you read from the book or play this recording that is saying the words from the book, basically you release some demons that they come and possess you. That's what The Evil Dead is basically about. I really enjoyed it to rewatch it. I thought it was funny because obviously it has aged and not super well. If you have never seen The Evil Dead before and this is the first time you watch it now in 2023, probably you're going to think it's not a good movie. But back in the day when it came out with nearly no budget, people were obsessed with it, people were horrified by it, and it got very popular. So after that, I watched a movie from 1971 that I have never seen before. I found this one on Netflix and it's called Fright. It is a British movie, which at the end of the day, it has a trope that we've all seen before. It is a very classic home invasion film where you have a babysitter and somebody that comes in and is threatening her. Nothing super like special or anything, but I always love to watch these old movies when I have the time to see also where a lot of ideas and inspirations come from. And yeah, I enjoyed it. And then of course we followed our rewatch of the Evil Dead franchise, and we watched my favorite one, which is Evil Dead 2. If you watch my ranking, you know. If not, this is my favorite one. Evil Dead 2, I feel like they had all the good elements from the first movie. They had more budget and they had fully embraced Ash as our main character. And the movie is basically revolving all around him and his fight against evil. And I really enjoyed it because they really committed to the comedy as well with this one, and it paid off, and there's a lot of blood. And this one was just a lot of fun for me. Then we rewatched Army of Darkness, which it's not exactly a horror movie, it's more of a fantasy. And I enjoy it, don't get me wrong, even though this is indeed my least favorite one from the franchise. It does not mean that I do not enjoy it and that I would not rewatch it for some fun. I did enjoy it. I love, you know, the fight against the skeletons. It's really fun. I just love everything about this movie, but if I have to rank it, it's sadly not one of my favorite ones. And then I rewatched Evil Dead from 2013, and I have to say this has been one of my favorite remakes or takes on an older movie. I am not particularly a fan of remakes because I feel like if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. And also, I've been burned many times before with remakes, especially when it comes to, you know, the latest years with Stephen King remakes like Pet Sematary and Firestarter that were really disappointing. So I'm not a huge fan of remakes, but Evil Dead from 2013, I felt like they did it right. I felt like they did a really good job at taking the concept of the Evil Dead and giving us a serious horror movie. Our main character Mia is struggling with substance abuse, so her friends basically take her to this cabin in the woods as an intervention to try to help her. And that is where evil is released, as we expect from an Evil Dead film, and Mia gets possessed by this evil demon. Now, I feel like they did a really good job at making an Evil Dead film, but also making something new. And this movie also offered a lot of blood and gore, a lot more than the original. And it had many amazing visuals when it comes to the kills. And I really did enjoy this one. So I feel like it's one of those remakes that I actually enjoy, which is not all of them. And then obviously we went to the cinema to watch Evil Dead Rise. I went with kind of high expectations because the trailer was something that I thought was promising. I was looking for a serious horror movie with a lot of blood and gore and maybe the occasional joke, because we are, at the end of the day, in the Evil Dead franchise. And that is exactly what I got. So I feel like that is why I was so satisfied. I'm aware that this film doesn't have the best storyline and plot, but that is not what I'm going for, you know, when it comes to an Evil Dead movie, if I'm honest with you. I'm going for the fight against evil and for the kills and all of that good stuff. The film follows two sisters that are finally reunited in an old apartment in Los Angeles. So one of the sisters has two kids, and the kids, during an earthquake, find a book, one of the books, The Dead. There is 3 books, so they find one of them. And of course, they find some old recordings that they play, and you know what happens? An evil is released, an evil demon, and it possesses their mother. I really love this film because we didn't have a group of friends. We had sisters and their kids, and there is a recurrent theme throughout the whole film about motherhood and what it means and what would you do for your kids, for your sister. And I just really loved that. I felt like it gave the characters so much more importance. Like I really cared for them, especially when you see the family turning on each other, things like that. It has a lot more impact than just a couple of friends in a cabin in the woods. At least for me, when it comes to the emotional level. And I felt like the horror was fantastic. There was so much tension. There was so many great shots also in the dark. I don't know how they did it, but they were fantastic. There is a whole sequence that is basically being shown through a peephole that I thought was fantastic. I just was there for all the horror, and it's quite gory and bloody, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Then we went to see Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, and this one I was not in a rush to watch, even though I did want to watch it because I thought it was just gonna be a lot of fun, and that's exactly what you're gonna get with this movie. It is basically finally bringing back fantasy movies with comedy, which I feel like is something we lost somewhere along the way. And this one was just so much fun for the whole family. I felt like the dynamic duo between our 2 main characters was just fantastic. Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez did such a good job with their characters, and I feel like thanks to them and their characters being so lovable and realistic and fun, the movie worked so well. The movie, like, the plot is fairly simple. We have thieves, they are thieves, so they steal things to resell them to survive, and they've been doing it their whole lives. But now there is so much more at stake because Chris Pine's daughter in the movie is separated from him and he wants to get her back. So there's a lot more at stake and their plan needs to work. So it's just a lot of fun. If you love Dungeons and Dragons, if you love just fantasy fun movies, I feel like this is a movie that a lot of people are gonna enjoy. It's just a good time. It's perfect to go watch it with friends, with kids. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Then I was browsing through Amazon Prime trying to find something I had not seen yet, which is hard. And I found The Visitor. I didn't have high expectations for the movie. And yeah, it also ended up being a little bit underwhelming. I felt like it is a movie that is basically something that we have seen many times before. So Robert and Maya are going through a really hard time. A lot of bad things have been happening to them, so they decide to move back to Maya's childhood home. And when they do, Robert finds a portrait in the house of a guy that looks exactly like him. So you kind of already know we're dealing here with possible doppelganger scenario. And like I said, it's a movie that doesn't bring anything new to the table, and I feel like it was trying at times to bite a lot more than it could chew. So in my opinion, you guys can skip this one. And then I watched Siberia. Listen, this movie was so weird. I love Willem Dafoe. I love this guy, and I know he tends to do some weird movies. I was not ready for this one. I also know that the director tends to do weird movies, and I feel like the director has really good concepts that he tries to bring to life, but I feel like he tries to portray his thoughts in his movies and forgets that the audience cannot see his thoughts, and sometimes it's hard to get the message across with his films. That's how I feel about it. In the movie, we follow Clint, who is a man that has isolated himself somewhere in Siberia. Everything is frozen, and you kind of go through a lot of his thoughts, and his mental state is also not very stable at the moment. But the movie is a really weird trip, like from beginning to end, and there is a ridiculous amount of nudity. Like, everybody was naked suddenly on the screen. I'm like, not a naked person. I don't know. This one is very specific movie. I think if you like Ferrara's movies, you might want to check it out. But it's quite weird. It's not for your typical, you know, regular moviegoer. I would not recommend you this film because, yeah, it is quite weird. And then I have another rewatch. I rewatched The Collector because my partner had not seen the film. And I feel like this is one of those, I think, early 2000s films. And I remember really enjoying it, and I also did really enjoy it the second time around. I really appreciated it even a little bit more than the first time around that I watched it. We follow a guy that is basically a handyman for a rich family, and he needs to pay back a debt from his ex-wife. And he decides to steal from the rich family. However, he doesn't know that somebody else is already planning to break into that house for other purposes, and he ends up kind of in the mix. The Collector is quite an interesting film. I know a lot of people hated on it or didn't really enjoy it. I felt like it was a really creepy, unsettling film that gave us the character of the Collector, which is this guy that you don't know really at the beginning why he's doing the things he's doing, why he is killing people. I felt the kills were also great. They were brutal, they were different, some of them were surprising. I really did enjoy it. The only thing I did not like about this film, not the first time, not the second time around, is that there is a little bit of animal harm. Obviously not real, but there is depiction of animal harm in the movie, and I was not a big fan of that. After The Collector, I finally watched Day Shift. This is a Netflix movie that when it came out, I thought, okay, I'll give it a watch, and then I forgot about it, and I never watched it until now. And I can tell you, it was fun, but again, it was a movie that didn't give me anything new. So if you love vampire movies, I felt like this was more of a comedy take on something like Blade. It is about this guy that has a secret job. He pretends to be a pool cleaner, but in reality, he works day shifts trying to kill vampires, and he does it obviously during the day because that is when vampires are most vulnerable or are sleeping. So he uses the day shift, which is the safest one. In the movie, we'll also get to know an organization that kind of regulates this kind of kills and everything like that. So there were a lot of cool things in the movie. The kills were fun. They were brutal at times, but it was very funny. The comedy did work for me. I had a blast. I had a really good time. I just didn't feel like it brought so many like interesting new things or fresh stuff. But honestly, give it a watch. It's fun. It's about vampires. It's quite bloody, and I would rewatch it, to be honest. And then another one that my partner had not seen. I'm doing this a lot because there's a lot of movies he has not seen yet, and I felt like this one he had to see. It's a Lars von Trier movie, so you know it's gonna be weird. And it is The House That Jack Built. I've always had a soft spot for this movie because it kind of depicts in a very true and raw way a serial killer. How he evolves mentally, physically, and his work. let's put it that way. And I find this movie absolutely fantastic. I really truly enjoyed it. It is a failed architect, Jack, who is narrating to you the incidents. That's how he calls it, and that's basically the times where he tried or killed someone, why he did it, how he did it, and all of that. Lars von Trier, what he does is he grabs you, he throws you into a movie in which there is a very heavy topic that is being portrayed, and you have an awful journey throughout the whole film, but at the end of the day, it has an amazing, epic ending. It's not a pretty journey, but it's almost enjoyable. It is horrific, but the ending of this movie was chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. And sadly, when it comes to movies, the last movie of the month that I watched right on the 30th of April was not a good time. And that is The Devil Below. I think this one I found on Netflix, and I decided to give it a shot. And at the beginning, I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe it's not gonna be as bad as I'm assuming it's gonna be, but it was. I think the problem with this movie was that the pacing was off at times, the acting was also not always on point, and the whole mystery and tension didn't really work, and you were also not connected at all to the characters. It is a group of amateur adventurers that specialize on exploring like old, remote, abandoned places, and they end up going to this abandoned mine where basically the whole village that was around it disappeared one day without any explanation. So they go there trying to investigate what happened, and yeah, obviously they end up awakening something they should not have been awakening. You know, if you poke and poke, you're gonna get hurt. So the only good thing about the movie was the creatures were fun. That's it. That's the pitch. Honestly, you can skip this one. I feel like for the most part you were just waiting and waiting, and it was dragging and boring, and then the ending got a little bit interesting because of the creatures, but by that point a lot of people probably would have already given up on the film. When I start a movie, I finish it, I commit to it. I don't like to start movies and then just stop, so I committed to it. Did it redeem itself? Not really. But I'm here to let you know that you may want to skip this one. As for TV shows, we're still currently watching Supernatural. We finished The Mandalorian and stuff. And the only other thing that I watch is called 28 Days Hunted. Now, normally I'm not a fan of this type of shows because I feel like everything is staged. That's just my personal opinion. I feel like this is just actors doing their job instead of real things, but that's just my belief. But I wanted to watch this one because it's related to the Warrens, and the Warrens, everybody knows Ed and Lorraine Warren from the Conjuring movies, so they had some cases that they had investigated in the past, obviously, and they had a theory about when you spend 28 days in a haunted place, that the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. So the program decides to send 3 groups of paranormal investigators to 3 different locations where the Warrens had investigated before or had mentioned that they were haunted places. And basically through the documentary you get to see what the 3 different teams are able to achieve when it comes to communicating to spirits, ghosts, and everything that happens during those 28 days. As I said before, I'm not a believer of these things, but I thought it was interesting, fun. But yeah, I normally don't watch these shows. Let me know down below if you do, and which ones should I really try for someone that doesn't really enjoy these things so much. But maybe you can tell me which ones you absolutely love or enjoyed and that I should check out. Alright you guys, so that is everything that I watched in the month of April. And I feel like there's a lot of movies that are not coming here to the theater, and I don't know how many new horror releases I can check out here in the cinema. I think I'm just gonna maybe revisit some older movies. I also have a lot of movies still on my physical media collection that I have not seen, so maybe I will review some of those even though they're older movies, but maybe there are some gems there that we haven't discovered yet. If there's any specific movie that you want me to review, old or new, whatever it is, leave it in the comments down below so I can check it out for you guys. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what is the best movie you watched in the month of April. Doesn't matter if it's a new one or if it's a older movie. What is the best thing you watched in the month of April? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in our next coffee time. Bye!